Have you ever felt like you didn't belong somewhere? Like everyone was smarter or more qualified than you? Well, today I'm going to talk about the common psychological phenomenon known as imposter syndrome. We're going to talk about why it keeps you from living your unique purpose and also what you can do about it. Imposter syndrome is also known by a few other names, including imposterism, and it's not really even a syndrome at all. It's not associated or connected to any kind of disease, and this psychological pattern has been studied and found universally. All of us at some point have struggled with these feelings. Imposterism is where an individual doubts their skills and their talents and their accomplishments, and they have a fear of being exposed as a fraud. This is when we feel less capable than the people around us, like we haven't really earned anything that we've accomplished and that we're not worthy of recognition. It's when we feel like we don't belong. Imposterism is unwarranted insecurity. If you've ever felt this way, well, then you're in good company. Remember, this is a universal pattern that has been studied amongst all of humanity. Not only that, a number of famous people have talked openly about this feeling of being a fraud. People like Tom Hanks and Serena Williams, Maya Angelou, and even Albert Einstein talked about how they didn't feel like they really deserved all the attention that they were receiving and that they hadn't really accomplished that much. But here's the fascinating thing about imposterism. While we often doubt ourselves and our accomplishments and the things that we have contributed, we don't think anyone else does. We don't realize how universal this brain pattern is. That means that when we think that we aren't capable, we don't think anyone else feels that way. When we feel like we don't belong, we don't think anyone else feels that way. So the first thing that I want you to realize is that if you have ever felt this way, you're just human. It's totally a normal reaction that many of our brains have had at many times in our life. Now, imposterism will hold you back from becoming who you are meant to be and accomplishing your unique purpose. Of course, if we feel like an imposter or a fraud, then we won't try stretching ourselves and doing the things that we are interested in or taking the steps forward into living our purpose because we don't feel like we belong. We end up limiting ourselves. We keep ourselves from becoming who we are meant to be and having the impact that we are meant to have on the world. It's because we don't feel like that's us, that we are capable of those things. We don't even step into the arena because we don't believe that we belong there with the change makers. But imposterism is totally created within our own mind. That's why somebody can come and tell us how amazing they think we are, and we can still not believe them because it's totally in our own mind. That's why no matter how many awards Maya Angelou got and how much recognition she got, she still felt like people just didn't see the real her. They didn't realize she wasn't actually that talented. That's because it was all in our own mind. We are creating this pattern for ourselves. We think if others just knew the real me, then they wouldn't say such nice things about me, or they would realize that I don't belong here. See, this psychological pattern that is created by our own brain holds us back. It keeps us living small in the world. It keeps us from really reaching our divine potential. I know because this is something that I've had to work on too, just like you and every other human being that has ever existed. I have had moments where I really feel like I don't belong, or if people knew the real me, then they wouldn't think that I am doing such a great job. This is definitely something I've had to work on as I have built my life coaching practice, as I've put myself more out there in the world on social media and in videos, and as I've gotten more and more clients. I have realized that I have these thoughts too, right? It comes up for me usually in the form of like, Well, if people saw me at home and how I lose patience with my kids, then they would realize that I'm kind of a fraud and I shouldn't be a life coach and I don't belong here. I'm not good enough to help other people, right? But this all comes from this idea that in order for us to help or serve the world, that we have to be perfect first, which is, of course, not true. When I indulge in these thoughts of imposterism, what I want to do is just go into hiding. I want to stop showing up in the world. I'm tempted to stop living my purpose, which is the last thing that I want to do. What I want to do is to show up and have a positive impact on the world in whatever way I can, that I can help people as much as possible. So when these thoughts come up of feeling like a fraud or imposter, I've come up with a few ways that help me get back on track and able to live my purpose. The first thing that really helps me, we've already talked about, and that's just realizing that I'm not the only one that has ever felt this way. It is part of the human experience. Everyone's had some thoughts like this. It doesn't mean anything about me, and it's not a big deal. The second thing that's really helped me is realizing the words, "I'm a fraud," are just a thought. They're not necessarily true. See, there's going to be people who agree with that statement. They'll think that we aren't talented or good enough to show up in this area, that we don't belong. But there are definitely going to be people who vehemently disagree with that statement. They're going to think that we're amazing and awesome, we totally belong, and that we're not even getting enough recognition. See, as a life coach, there may be people who see me indulging in worry, and they may think she's not good enough to be a life coach because sometimes she worries about things. Or they may think that I'm not talented enough or that I don't belong. But there are definitely people who are going to disagree. They're going to think, look at how all of the changes she's made in her life over the last couple of years. She totally should be a life coach. She absolutely belongs. Look at all of the things that she's accomplished. But here's the thing. No one can actually prove one side or the other. No one can definitively say whether I'm talented enough or whether I belong as a life coach, right? So we just get to choose how we want to think about things. And since what we focus on grows, I always recommend focusing on the thing that we want more of, the thing that serves us. So I recommend focusing on whichever position will allow you to really step into your potential and become who you are meant to become so that you can have the impact that you are meant to have on the world. You can just choose to believe in yourself and believe that you belong and that you do have talent and that you're growing into who you're meant to be. You can choose that. Which brings me to my third tip, and that is to focus on seeing yourself the way that God sees you. Anytime in my life I have read quotes or scriptures about the way God sees us, what we are capable of with Him, our potential, then imposterism just melts away. It's no longer a question of if I'm capable or have enough worth or able to do something. No, you are a child of God with unlimited potential. Working with Him, you can accomplish absolutely anything. There's nothing beyond your reach. You have your own spark of divinity, and the Savior of the world walks beside you. He is there to help you. He wants you to succeed. You are capable of anything together. So don't let imposterism hold you back from stepping into your potential. It is where you belong. You've totally got this.